Hello, everybody, and thanks to another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. You know you're in for a treat when you hear that noise because it is a fun little tune that means there's some fun poker wisdom on the way. I got to thank our friends at Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino and website AMP. And I got to thank everybody who's here on the Wrecking Crew that you can find out by going to rec.poker/crew, or you can just listen up because you're about to hear from them just now.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 on PokerStars.
And I am John Somsky. I am Poker Geek MN everywhere.
And I'm Keith Brandt, and I'm Monkey System everywhere.
And I'm Rob Washam, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
Well, as you know, every week we get a chance to get together here and talk to some fun folks in the world of poker. This week I'm excited because it's Chad Holloway who's back on the show. Chad, thank you so much. You're the man who needs no introduction. We're going to give you one in a second anyway, but thanks for coming, man. It's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's always fun. I'll probably never say no because I really enjoy hopping on the horn and chatting with all you guys. It's fun to get together with people who love poker as much as the Rec Poker guys do. So,
you said it, man. That's so sweet. I know you guys have a lot of fun over there too. From one podcaster to another, right? That's it's amazing. You've been doing this for a really long time. And you've kind of become one of the real poker insiders when it comes to this sort of thing. I'm definitely a newcomer, and so are a lot of the guys here. And one thing that took me by surprise was just how open the poker world was to people making room for themselves and help getting involved. And for some of our listeners, our more recent listeners that might not have heard before, can you talk a little bit about just like what your experience was like getting involved in the industry outside of as a player?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking about this last week about my kind of evolution in poker as my 14th World Series of Poker is rapidly approaching, which to me, I still feel relatively new in the poker world, but obviously I'm not. I've been around since 2009 was my first WSOP. And it was about that time where I decided to try to break into the poker industry in a way. I had dropped out of law school in 2008. I was going to Tulane in New Orleans, moved back to Wisconsin, not really sure what I was going to do with my life. Poker, I enjoyed playing it, but I didn't have much of a bankroll. And so I just kind of decided, can I take my love of poker and my skills of writing, which I've just kind of always been naturally good at, and combine the two? And found a couple online gigs, real small, just basically writing for free and putting in my dues. That opened the door for me getting an internship with Bluff Magazine in 2009. It was one of those things where I thought it was going to be a one-off. All right, I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to work in the poker media. I'm going to get to meet my favorite players. And then I'll come back and do something real, get a real job as we call it. And that's what I did. I went out there in 2009, came back and said, all right, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I dropped out of law school. I have a history degree and thought, all right, I'm going to just go back. I'm going to teach. I'm going to start teaching is what I'm going to do. So that's what I did. I took all my credits and I was doing student teaching when the 2010 WSOP rolled around. And I said, you know what? I still got that itch. Let me just throw out a flyer to PokerNews. And I had learned about PokerNews when I was there the year before. They were the ones who do the live updates. Fortunately, they liked what I was doing. They gave me an opportunity. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, just real quick, I won't harp on this, but you mentioned about, somebody who wanted to get into the industry. And I vaguely remember, I can't remember everybody I hit up, but I went through all the magazines, all the websites, all the people who wrote about poker, who were in quote unquote poker media. And I sent them emails back then saying, hey, I'm looking to break into this industry. Can it be done? Do you have any recommendations? And largely the message I got back at the time was, yes, it can be done, but you shouldn't do it because it's going to be really, really hard to do it. And fortunately, I still went against the grain and managed to make it work for myself because here I am in 2022, still going strong and now serving as the executive editor for the United States for all of PokerNews.
Wow, there you go, man. And it just goes to show, right? I mean, we had Mike Patrick on the show a few weeks ago, and we were like, so who do you talk to when you want to get involved? And he's like, well, you got to talk to the man himself. That's Chad Holloway over here at PokerNews. And like, it's amazing to watch your ascent as a recreational player. It's great. And I love the way you talk about just like starting out, making a way for yourself, paying your dues, putting time in, and just like contributing to the poker world, right? That's how you show some value and get noticed and become someone that other people want to work with, right?
It's not easy. It takes time. Even when you're in the industry, you got to start, you got to learn the ropes, and then you got to develop the relationships with the players, the operators, the casinos. I've been doing this for 14 WSOPs now. I've got a lot of those relationships, fortunately, but I'm always working on that. And that it just takes time in a lot of regards to establish yourself, not just in poker, in any pursuit, any industry that you do. If you're looking to make a name for yourself, all you do is put your nose to the grindstone and work at it and build that following, build those fans, build that audience, whatever it may be. But if you stick with it, if you have the passion and love for the game, I think it'll come.
So PokerNews, it does a lot of different things. You've got your fingers in a bunch of different projects all over the poker world. WSOP is coming up. Obviously, that feels like a big deal. Does it stand out among sort of like what you work on professionally, or are there other like really exciting contracts or events that make your eyebrows go up when you think about it?
Well, there's no doubt that the WSOP is what our whole industry really revolves around. It's the sun at the center of the poker universe, if you will. So for PokerNews, it's always on our radar. When we're finishing one up, we're almost planning the next one. We might take a month or two off, and I always tell people, and this harkens back to what we just spoke about opportunities in the poker world, the WSOP is really the place to start. Mike Patrick, that's where he got his start. It's where I got my start. And that's because all these different poker companies, PokerNews included, usually have to bring on people in order to staff these events. Whereas outside the WSOP, we don't necessarily need as many people. And so WSOP is really where you get your foot in the door. And if you show up and prove that you can do good things, and for PokerNews, live reporting and writing ability and things like that, that then in turn can lead to other opportunities. We've got some guys right now who are about to fly over to Europe to Monaco for the EPT, who started at this last WSOP and showed us, I've got what it takes. They do a good job. And so now they're finding other gigs. And that's exactly how I got started in the industry. So WSOP is definitely the biggest time of the year for us. We set our calendars to it. And then for anybody who's wanting to break into the poker industry, whether that's the media side of things, dealing even, that's really the place to do it.
And then we kind of got Mike's perspective on what it's like on the ground in that environment. Last year was his first time reporting at the World Series for you guys. What's your day-to-day like during an event like that? Because obviously you've got different duties and different responsibilities, but like what's a typical day or a week like in that cycle for you?
Yeah, my duties have certainly changed each and every year. It used to be I was just a live reporter, a grunt, if you will, a soldier on the ground doing those live updates. But now I'm more in a managerial role. So in addition to occasionally doing some live updates, I'm still writing news stories as they happen. I'm still overseeing one of several people who oversee the team, making sure everything's going off without a hitch. There's a lot of logistics behind the scenes when it comes to live reporting, making sure the seat draws, the ID cards, all of that is in order. And then really it's morphed into this just a point of contact with the World Series of Poker, with other sponsors, with players. If there's issues or anything, a lot of people associate me with PokerNews at this point. And so they come to me with these questions, concerns, whatever they might be. So a lot of it is just handling that, making sure things like that get sorted. Players coming up saying, hey, can you update my photo on my player profile and things like that? I mean, we really do it all. And we want it to be all about the players. We know that, if they want their poker fame, their poker spotlight, PokerNews and those live updates is a great way to do it. So we're just trying to do our best for players, for fans, and then, of course, for the World Series and other partners.
You said it, man. Well, talk about doing a lot of different things. And I should say, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, and everyone can come in, we do these live now every week on YouTube. If you see Chris drop out and the YouTube thing crash, that's because Chris has been losing power and he's the one producing the stream right now. So the audio on the podcast will probably continue, but just in case, if you're over there and you see us drop out, now you know why. So speaking about doing all these different things, I mean, it's not just the reporting blog. It's not just the fun community that you built of people around PokerNews. Talk about the podcast a little bit and how that sort of evolved and your role with that and what you enjoy about that.
Yeah, the PokerNews podcast has been around for a long time, and it started even before I was part of it. At one point, Donnie Peters and Rich Ryan, who are no longer with PokerNews, they were kind of helming it, and I was kind of the third wheel, if you will. And I remember doing shows with them, and just feeling like I wasn't very good at it. I remember getting off, after the recording and thinking, man, that was not good. I'm not very pleased with that. And so tried to put an effort into being better at podcasting, if you will, and listening to other podcasts, both in and out of the poker industry, to see what people are doing and just getting more comfortable with it. And then when I was working for the Mid-States Poker Tour, the MSPT, which I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with, I was also doing some side work with PokerNews. And it was around that time, me and Jamie Kerstetter started the LFG podcast, which was a podcast that was devoted to really the mid majors. We didn't care about Phil Ivey or Phil Hellmuth. We wanted to talk about, winners on the MSBT, the Run Good, the WSOP circuits, and things like that. And it was a big success. We were nominated for Podcast of the Year in our first year, which was exciting. Unfortunately, it fell to the wayside when there were some changes within the company. Jamie went on to do another podcast, and then I got bumped into kind of being more full-time on the PokerNews podcast, along with Sarah Herring. And that's just been a blast. I look forward to it each and every week. I actually usually do the recording. I edit the show, put it out on the platforms, and it's been fun because I am not a very technical guy. So to learn a new craft, if you will, a new trade and these new skills, that's been very rewarding. And it's just, you guys know, you do it. It's fun just to get together with friends and talk poker. And there's one thing about the written word, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but for me, the PokerNews podcast is the exposure part of it, almost, where you get to interact with other people that you work with, interact with players you're interviewing, and then interact with fans who might get involved as well.
Yeah, that's definitely been one thing that I've loved about doing the podcast here and being on the panel back when Steve was running it. Again, kind of like I said before, the sense of just how friendly and open the poker world is. I think there's just a lot of great people here that people might not credit. It's just easier than you think to strike up a conversation with a fun person. So that's a real plus. I am terrified at the notion of having to do all the mechanical aspects of it in post-production. We've got a team here that helps out with all that kind of stuff, like Roger Schutte and Diego and Chris and Mark and a bunch of other folks that get very involved. But it does sound nice getting to hang out with Sarah all the time. She's super fun. Tell us one bad thing about her, please.
Sarah is fantastic. We actually came into PokerNews at the same time. In 2010 was both our first years. She's been there throughout. I did leave for a few years to work for the MSPT, kind of had a footprint with PokerNews though throughout. And so we're kind of the two longest tenured people. We're more friends than just work colleagues, at this point. Yeah. I've gotten to see her go from, traveling the world, enjoying a bottle of wine, going out to the nightclubs. She loved to party for a little bit. And now she is, a mother of two, married, living in Texas. She still likes to have a little party every once in a while, but it's just been fun to see that transition. And I really don't have too much to say about bad about Sarah. Like everybody loves Sarah. She has this knack to get people to open up to her. And I guess if I have any complaint, it's just that I don't get to see her as much as I used to. And that's because we used to go from traveling around the world together. We'd be at different stops to now we're both kind of in managerial roles. We don't have to travel as much. And we and her have talked about this. Like, we don't want to travel as much anymore at this point in our lives, especially with her being in family, but we're both pushing 40. It was fun, but living out of a suitcase for more than half the year, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. They were some of the best years of my life, but now I'm a little more selective. I don't want to have to, there was 1 month years ago where I was home for literally 12 hours. The whole month, I was literally home for 12 hours to do laundry, see the dogs, and then back to the airport. And while it was fun, it was an adventure. I'm not sure I'm quite up for those days anymore. And I think Sarah's right there with me in that regard.
Yeah, well, there's something great about having some adventures in the rearview mirror that you get to look at from time to time from the comfort of today. Chris or John, do you guys have anything for Chad?
Yeah, I have just a quick question. Kind of thinking about, you're no stranger. Obviously, you just talked about sort of living out of a suitcase, going to a new site and a new venue, and kind of taking it in and preparing to do some reporting there. But talk me through what the challenges are in thinking about the WSOP this year in a new site. Like, is that just the same as going to Prague, or is there something different about like planning for a WSOP at an entirely different venue?
There's definitely been challenges. So at this point in my life, the WSOP is in Vegas is like a second home, right? I've been doing it for 14 years now. I've got a routine. I get in, I don't stay in a hotel anymore. I need an Airbnb where I can have it, like a home and laundry and a kitchen and all that jazz. But there are challenges knowing that it's not going to be at the Rio this year, which has just been a given for so long since I even got into it. And so we get asked questions about it. Unfortunately, we don't have answers because the WSOP hasn't provided them yet. I don't know about the parking situation. Believe me, it's on our mind. I'm going to have a car out there. So people asking, when should I plan to leave if I don't want to miss the start of day 2? I don't really know yet. So there are those unanswered questions. There are a few things that I have, my years in Vegas have taught me. For instance, the new site is east of the Strip, whereas the Rio was always on the west. So if you're looking to get a place for the summer, you might want to consider getting one east of the Strip so you don't have to worry about that traffic of going back and forth. Learn other things. The tram drops off at Bally's, the monorail that they have there. I don't know the specifics of it, but people should be thinking about that sort of thing. Parking, yes, it's going to be an issue. It's probably going to be a headache and nightmare. But on the flip side, there's going to be some positives, such as a lot more restaurant options, a lot more foot traffic from fans on the street. I hope they're out there advertising, here's the World Series of Poker. Come on in and check it out. Maybe your average Joe from Iowa sits down with $300 just so he could say he played in a WSOP tournament or cash game. So I think there's going to be pros and cons. Until we actually get there, both PokerNews and the players, I think it's hard to grasp. We're doing what we can. We know what the setup's going to be, where certain tournaments might take place, and we'll plan our reporting around that, but still a lot of unanswered questions. Now, I will say this real quick. I've been there. When we first heard there was a rumor that it was going to be at Bally's in Paris, I was in Vegas and I went down there because I wanted to see firsthand. And I've done 13 WSOPs at the Rio. It was great. I loved it. I was concerned that this new venue, this new setup might be able to do the job, but I can tell you, I'm confident in saying that it will. I think people are going to like it. The space was beautiful. It was large. The restrooms are plentiful, whereas at the Rio they weren't. There's just a lot that I liked about what I was seeing, and I, for one, am very excited about a new change.
Nice. Yeah, we've had a few people asking if we're doing a rec poker house this year, and sort of for the same reason. It's like, let's just see how it goes this year. Where's the right place to be, and so I think we'll probably just hopefully have a bunch of rec poker members meeting in the streets and battling it out on the felt. But yeah, it'll be a fun year to see how it goes. First times are hard, right? It's hard to do something for the first time. All sorts of things can go wrong.
Yeah, and just I think of it as a new chapter, right? The World Series used to be at Binion's, and that chapter closed, and it opened up the more modern era at the Rio. And now that chapter is kind of closing, and we're opening a new one, which is, to me, very exciting. I haven't experienced it before. When I first started in 2009, it was at the Rio and stuff. And so, yes, I know there's going to be a lot of people complaining. It's only natural. Even if it was still at the Rio, there would be people complaining about certain things. So I just tell people, be patient, plan accordingly, and give it a fair shake. I think overall, it's going to be a really good thing for the World Series of Poker and for the poker industry in general.
Yeah, I can't wait to get down there. John?
Well, I think this is a good follow-up to that conversation. My question is about your most infamous tweet. This was the tweet that you gave about leaving the Rio after the last WSOP, and I'll read it quickly for everyone, and then I'll let you comment, Chad. Goodbye to the hashtag WSOP at Rio. Since my first visit in 2009, I estimate I've spent 1.5 to 2 years of my life actually inside these walls. It's where I won my bracelet, lost my virginity, met my first wife, and met the woman I'd leave her for before meeting my second wife. So many memories. So how much of this is true? And was it really fun writing that?
Well, as to how much of it is true, the probably only two parts are true. I have probably spent about 1.5 to 2 years of my life inside the Rio when you consider all the hours I've been in there. And then, of course, it's where I did win my World Series of Poker bracelet, which is, a special memory. The rest, no, I've never been married. And it was strange to write it because it was when I left the World Series last year. I was actually changing planes in Denver on my way back to Wisconsin. It was early in the morning, and I had taken that picture the day before. And I thought, everybody's doing these goodbye tweets from the Rio. I should do something as well, but I don't want it to be too serious. It's just a quick, fun goodbye. So I wrote out this tweet, and without really much thought, I just was trying to be funny, and I almost didn't send it. I almost was like, I don't think people are going to get this. Like, no, okay, let me send. And I just hit send, kind of not thinking about it. And then within 90 seconds, I think it was, I can't remember his name offhand, but some big sports journalist with like 1 million followers, I think from ESPN or something, he found it and quote retweeted it. I don't know how he found it. He doesn't follow me on Twitter. I don't follow him on Twitter. He must have been just searching World Series of Poker, WSOP at that exact moment. So maybe it was kismet, but he retweeted it, and then it just caught fire. It was the by far my biggest performing tweet, and it was fun just to watch the responses roll in over the next 48 hours or so, because I guess the way it's written, it was driving people. It was a brain teaser for them. Like, wait, how many women is he talking about here? And then it was fun to see people who thought it was true, and some people calling me, a disgusting human being because of it. And it's Twitter, it's social media. I learned to not take it too serious a long time ago. But it was a lot of fun, and it's still one I get asked about like here, and occasionally out of the blue somebody will like retweet it on Twitter still because they'll have found their way to it. So
I know Chris has one question, but I can't take that segue. I can't not take it. Another thing that was super fun, I got to give you guys major props for the PokerNews bit you did for April Fools this year. Just purely, it was really well orchestrated. It was really well executed, and you guys really leaned into that. You committed to that bit. So who does the world have to thank for putting that together? And tell us a little bit about putting that together.
Yeah, it's 100% my good friend and colleague, Jesse Folan. He's the community manager and does social media for PokerNews. Last year, he did a April Fool's prank with Chris Moneymaker. That Moneymaker wasn't his real last name. It was Chris Smith. And he's friends with Chris Moneymaker, so Moneymaker played along. It was a big hit, and so he wanted to top it this year. And he had this idea several months ago about Doug Polk buying PokerNews and changing it to Polker. And he put in a lot of effort. He got the tech team on board to change the logo to actually change. He got PokerNews.com so that rerouted it, and then we just brainstormed as a team. So I said, we'll change all of the front page articles to Doug Polk related articles. They changed all the advertisement to Doug Polk related, Upswing Poker and his wife's self tanning line and things like that. And then to top it all off, we got Doug Polk on board. He did some videos, created some videos to sell it. Plus, it just so happened that me, Jesse, and John Sofin, a writer for us, were down in Texas for what we called Texas Week. We did a Texas road trip, and we were at the lodge in Austin. And so I had some FaceTime with Doug Polk, and I said, let's do a video that I can release on my personal social media to try to help sell this even more. So yeah, we went full blown with it. It was a lot of fun. And the whole team, it was just a very big morale booster for the entire team to get behind this and help sell the jokes.
The video on your account is the one that put me over the top. It was 12 years. So good.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard for us to top next year's April Fools, but I'm sure Jesse will try.
Yeah, well, kudos to the whole team there. All right, thanks for giving me a sec there, Chris. Jump in.
Yeah, no, Chad, kind of shifting gears. We have a question from one of our listeners, Jim Gibson, and it's very topical because it's kind of a big news story today, or kind of, I guess, Twitter news, I guess is what you'd call it. But he writes, I was really surprised with what I've read from Alex Foxen and the cheating he has brought up toward Elian Surovic in poker. What is your perspective on this? And I guess maybe my kind of follow-up to this is like, how do you at PokerNews approach things like this, which are sort of in the kind of zeitgeist, but they're not like confirmed? It's sort of like there's some innuendo out there, there's some accusations, but there's nothing like really concrete that you can sort of like, how do you approach these kinds of situations?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. In general, it's the whole, kind of like a court of law. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And that goes for what we can write about and talk about at PokerNews. We have a certain level of due diligence that we have to do. We don't want to open ourselves up to, any kind of liability. We do have a legal department and things like that. So it has to pass, the journalistic test. Without speaking, I guess, too specific, keeping that in mind. There are a lot of things out there, perhaps, or the recent story you just mentioned that has been on my radar for a while. But unfortunately, it's just one of those things where what can I do with it unless I have somebody who's willing to talk about it on the record, unless I have evidence or proof that I can write about and cite. It's just all accusations and innuendo that, unfortunately, from a journalistic standpoint, we can't really dive into. Now, occasionally with PokerNews, we'll have, when it's a subject, maybe not quite as serious as this one you just mentioned, but some other subjects, for instance, most recently, like All-American Dave, and saying he wouldn't be at the World Series. Whenever there's a big thing like that, where there's a bunch of social media around it, we'll do a series we call The Muck. And The Muck is basically us saying, here's what's happening on social media. Here are the responses to it, without us weighing in, if you will. We're not really doing any investigating. We're not, having to make a determination one way or the other. We're just saying, here's what's happening on social media. Here are the reactions to it. Now, could we do that with something like Foxen's tweet? Yeah, I guess technically, but with something like that, that's very serious. We want to have a high standard before we dive into it. Now, I can tell you this as well. When there are stories like this, believe me, when I say me or some of my colleagues do look into it. Like, we reach out, we try to work the sources, we try to get people to see if they'll come on and talk to us or talk on the record. Some stories, a little teaser, maybe one later this week on PokerNews, I'm able to get across the line, if you will, where I can report it and have all my bases covered. There have been many stories where we've put a lot of time and effort into it. And unfortunately, we might have a lot of circumstantial evidence, but we don't have the smoking gun. And in those instances, I tell my team, I'm sorry, like, we can't do it. We don't have the murder weapon, so we can't proceed without, with this trial, so to speak. So it's always a tricky line, but believe me, we always do try to dive into it when we can. And in the instance that you just mentioned, all I can say is, the high stakes poker community, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that they kind of police themselves, or a lot of them, I don't know why, but they don't speak on the record about it. You've seen Fox, and in one of his tweets, somebody said, can you provide proof? And he said, no, not really. I'm sure there's things out there that they can, but a lot of them just don't want to open up. There's a lot of, I don't even know, politics involved, a lot of bankroll and backing situations involved. The games might die if some people are outed or what. I don't know the exact specifics. I just know that from my perspective, it's not an easy egg to crack.
I appreciate that nuanced response, because I think, you've got different obligations to different parts of your audience too, right? Like, some people want to hear what people are speculating about and, what might be going on, and like trying to make their own opinion. But I really like to see that actual journalistic integrity when it comes to reporting itself. And, I think some people listening might feel like we're talking about poker news, but it's doing it right is doing it right. And, there's the rigor that you take for your actual reporting and journalism is impressive. So kudos, man.
Well, I appreciate it, but it's also like all media, and I get the overall debate on media in general in today's society. Look, there are advertisers, there's sponsors involved and things like that for any news organization, and PokerNews is no exception. And so that does certainly play a role in things and things that we sometimes do write about and how we can proceed when we write them. But for the most part, yes, I always try to, I'm not a journalist by trade either. I've learned a lot of what I've done as I've went. I didn't, I studied history when I was in college, and then a little bit, I had a little bit of a law background from my time in law school, and then getting a teaching degree. Like, I never was trained in journalism itself. And so it is this fine line of, I don't really consider myself a journalist in full-heartedly, certainly one aspect of it, but another aspect is content producer. Right? Sometimes there's content that has to be be made. And so it's just this juggling, and it varies from story to story or situation to situation. But it's certainly something I have to contend with quite frequently.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I'll let our members type another question in. I know we're going to let you go shortly. Jim Gibson says, thanks for your take. Much appreciated. So one question I've got then, just almost like logistically speaking, you must spend a lot of your time kind of deciding how to talk about some of this stuff that's off the record or that you don't have, sourced to your rigorous standards. How do you record that information in a way that'll make it accessible to you later when you do get to corroborate it? And like, is there a trick to sort of not having to just like constantly be evaluating what you're saying in public and what you're not? Like that just sounds like a stressful state to find yourself in.
Well, as far as like stories go, I try to do it year by year, if you will. So I've got folders on my desktop where I just try to stay organized, right? So if a story is completed, fortunately, we have PokerNews. That's my library system. When it does make it to print, there it is. It's going to be archived there, so it makes it a lot easier to find. And then for the stories that aren't, it's just basically filing them under the right folder. I have files for every single casino partner we work with, the tours and things like that. And that's more than just stories. It's keeping communication, contracts, all sorts of things. So, and that harkens back to when I first got into the industry. I literally, and I still have some of them in my file cabinet upstairs. I had a file cabinet with manila folders, and they had either the players' names or the tour or the event written on this. And I had hundreds of folders because of what I would do I would get Card Player Magazine and all these Bluff Magazine and other magazines that were around at the time. And I would read them and then I would clip them, so if I found a story about Daniel Negreanu, I would clip it and I would put it in that folder so that I could easily reference it. And this was back in 2007, 8, 9, when I was really trying to break into the industry. And Google and the stories weren't as easily accessible, or you couldn't find them as easy. So that's a little outdated, but it still just has evolved a little bit into to what I do now.
That's awesome. We did got one final question from Denise. Chad, when you're not working or playing poker, do you have any interesting hobbies? Or they might be boring hobbies and Chad just thinks they're interesting. We don't know yet.
Well, it's it's pretty well noted, I think, other than I'm a kind of a comic book geek. I did a poker themed comic book in 2015, the World Series of Zombies, WSOZ, about a zombie outbreak at the WSOP. And so I've always been a comic book guy since I was a kid, and I collect. I used to, in my background now, it's more professional, but it used to be like my room, which featured some of my collection. I got way too much stuff. And so one of my hobbies when I'm not traveling is sometimes we'll go to comic conventions and actually set up as like a vendor. And so I've got a very small secret life as a comic vendor in the Midwest. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because they don't know about my poker life for the most part, or some of them are just starting to find out about it. But yeah, that's kind of fun. I still enjoy the comic book stuff.
What a great answer. Well, yeah, Keith says congratulations on your final table appearance last month in MSPT Riverside. That was just, there we go. Yeah.
It was real quick. That was so much fun. And I think a lot of people might appreciate this story that are listening was, so this was the MSPT Riverside $1,100 buy-in tournament, 1,094 runners. I made it to day 2 on one bullet. We had to lose 3 tables before the money, and I lost half my chips. It looked like I wasn't going to make the money. Held on to eventually make the money, and then just waited. And I think 107 got paid or something like that. Anyways, just kind of hung around. Eventually, if you hang around long enough, you usually hit your stride. And I hit my stride with 45 people left. Built up a big stack. It was great. But then went card dead and started to lose. And we were approaching the final 3 table redraw, so the top 27 players, and I was super short. And I thought, man, if I could just make it to the top 27, it's like a $1,500 pay jump. Let me try to do that. I managed to do it, and I'm not even joking. From 27 all the way to where I eventually finished in 5th place, I was below half the average stack that entire run. I just was card dead, would get really short, and then manage to find a double, and then that would keep me alive. And so the point I'm making about this is ICM. Your chips are so valuable in these tournaments, especially deep, that just surviving. There are many spots where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a coin flip, but I'm still going to fold because these chips are too valuable. I'm not just going to flip. I'm going to make sure I get it in really good. And then, I ended up finishing in 5th place for about 50,000. And that was about the best result that I could hope for because, as I said, I was so short that I was just outlasting all these other short stacks. And then when we got to, the other 4 players just had millions and millions in chips, and I had nothing. Anything can happen. I didn't win the hand, but anyways, that was certainly a fun run. And just usually you might be disappointed with a 5th place finish, but as I just described the circumstances, I felt like I won the tournament. Like I was aiming to get cash out for 4,000, and all of a sudden I found myself in 5th for 50,000. It was like a win. So
that's amazing, Chad. It just goes to show, folks, don't be afraid of playing that short stack. You don't get desperate and feel like you just got to shove it in because you got one high card. Lots of people are left that can make really stupid mistakes. You don't know. Let them stick around and let them. You never know. Fold your way to success. In fact, that's the theme of the month here at Rec Poker is final tables and ICM, and it's kind of letting your opponents make more mistakes than you and worse mistakes than you. That's kind of playing defense when it comes to it. So good timing for that. Well, Chad, where can folks find you if they do want to reach out, if they want to be titillated about cartoons or getting more involved in PokerNews, or just want to hang out with a fun guy and talk poker? What's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, Twitter is by far the best way to interact or get a hold of me, and I'm at Chad A. Holloway. A is my middle initial, so at Chad A. Holloway. I'm also on Instagram, disco_Chad. That is usually my online screen name. Dating way back when is Disco Chad, disco_Chad. It's also what my friends call me when I drink too much and Disco Chad comes out because he likes to dance and have a good time. So.
Well, thanks. Maybe we'll meet up with Disco Chad down in Vegas this summer. You never know. Fingers crossed.
I will be there. I look forward to seeing anybody who's out there, all of you guys and anybody else listening. Make sure you come say hi. We'll be there. PokerNews will be out in full force.
Right on. Well, thank you again, Chad. That's wonderful. Well, John Somsky's going to take us through some of the home game results. And if you want to get involved with getting together with Disco Chad down in Vegas, buy John Somsky a beer. And then take a photograph or get a friend to take a photograph of you buying John Somsky a beer. Email me for that photograph, jim@rec.poker. And then when we meet up in Vegas, I'll buy you a beer. And the circle of beer continues. So I'm looking forward to that. John does a lot of amazing work behind the scenes here. And the guy deserves a beer. So make it happen, folks. Make it happen, Rec Poker Nation. John, how you feeling? Thirsty?
Yeah, I actually did have a beer this weekend, but I bought it for myself.
Well, send me a photograph. Oh, you already drank it.
Yeah, it's already. Yeah,
oh, man. So you've got the opportunity for like the free roll of a lifetime now. Think about it.
Yeah, I didn't know you could take selfies with beers and just get beer upon beer. That seems.
Actually, and I think my iPhone has one of those rapid fire thing. I could probably in a second get like 4,000 pictures.
One photo per beer. I'm putting that stipulation in the contract immediately. But honestly,
how would you know it's the same beer? They don't have serial numbers.
That's true. And you're very good at holding a pose. We know that historically.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, maybe I've opened a real can of worms here. We'll see. It sounds like a good problem to have, though, for me. Have to buy John Somsky a ton of beers and drink them with him.
Speaking of some good things, we had the Mixed Game Championship Series held on Wednesday, April 13th, and Graphic 16, Roger Shute, won his very first Mixed Game Series of the year.
Roger! Was that the Saturday night or the Wednesday night?
Wednesday night.
The big boy, the real one.
Exactly, for the points.
Wow. Roger Shute, one of our outstanding members of the dream team here who does all sorts of work with the podcast post-production. Way to go, Roger. You deserve that.
So you say Shute. Have you confirmed that the E is pronounced?
I have personally confirmed it with Roger.
Okay. I will.
In the same space. Yeah. I thought it was Shoot.
Well, someone else who has a similar spelling says that their name is Shute, which is that's why I assumed that was the case. But, if Roger says his name is Shute, then it's the name Shute.
I just immediately blamed you and threw you right under the bus. It took like 1 microsecond, and I was like, "Oh, that's all John's fault. John's been saying shoot. That jerk. He just has no respect for people's personal identity." But yeah, Roger Shute, another guy that you should buy a beer, World, if you see him out there.
I'm sure he is not the first nor the last person whose name I will mispronounce. Next, we have B-Chip. Charles Allen won his second nightly victory for the year.
Yes, Charles, nice.
John Lancer, John Bensky, got his won the daily TOC victory, Tournament of Champions. That means he gets a silver pin.
And he's like winning every other tournament we do these days. You're mentioning John Lancer twice a week up here.
I know people. It's weird the way they just kind of go on streaks. Yeah. All of a sudden, everything starts going right for them. Or they just start showing up, maybe. April 12th, Frogman Rick Day, won his first nightly event for the year.
So many of my favorite people on the show this week.
MN Ted, Philip Fuhrer, got his first nightly victory for the year. Bloop 7, Mark.
He shared it with everybody on Cards Chat, too, over Twitter. That was Philip putting a fun tweet out there. He's such a fun guy.
Yeah, well, he's won some other ones recently, too. So he's constantly in the mix. I think he's in the running for some of the points leagues. Or maybe that's on Annie Up. I don't remember.
Now I know we have to interrupt you because we haven't been interrupting you much over the last little while. You're currently leading the standings in the Player of the Year race, John, Poker Geek M and Somsky, if I am correct. Did you? Yeah, I think so.
Am I?
Yeah, I'm right behind you, chasing at your ankles. But I think you are sitting up on top there. So congratulations so far. I mean, it's only April, but we'll see.
And he's the Marek champion. My God, I mean.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. This guy knows poker, apparently.
Well, that has proven that the worst player can win. That'd be me.
If you've seen any of John's promo videos for Marek Madness, you know that he's the most self-deprecating person in the world, and all he does is just bink tournaments. So congratulations, John. Way to go, man.
Well, the best part of the whole thing was that I heard that my promo videos gave Chris Jones nightmares. So that is really, I mean, more so than winning Marek Madness, it was knowing that it was nightmare inducing.
It was.
Now we are, I think, Bloop 7, Mark Bloomberg got his third nightly victory for the year. Digging 8 Graves, Chris Simanu got his third nightly victory for the year. Isma Spike won the daily mixed event. Max Chaos 2112, Greg Clem won the first international event of the day and his third for the year. And then Keck Geek Senior, Mark Kiki, won his first international event for the year.
Nice.
And last but not least, Michael Babker, won his second daily LPP event, so he can contact Jim at rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
That's right. So do email me, Jim at rec.poker, and I'll get you a code to give you that free month. You don't want to miss that. And one thing I got to say, I noticed, I was scrolling through Twitter this week, and I noticed one of our premium members, Eric Romo, who goes by GF Hawk in the home games, he placed second in one of the mixed games that we did. I don't know if it was the monthly mixed game. I think it might have been. And I just want to congratulate Eric Romo for placing second in that mixed game tournament, because Eric is a no limit hold'em player and he prefers no limit hold'em. And he and I communicate with some regularity about how, it would be nice if we could play a no limit hold'em game every night of the month and not take that one night off and only play the mixed game. And I've been telling him, Eric, give it a try, man. You'll love mixed games. We're trying to do more mixed games. I'm like you. I love no limit hold'em. I'm trying to expand my own horizon and do more mixed game stuff. Give it a try. And I didn't hear from him a couple months. And now he's second place in the freaking mixed game tournament. So I feel like, Eric, thank you so much for taking a step and trying something new and putting yourself out there. And also thank you for sharing your feedback with me and being honest about what you like and what you want to see more of and what you want to see less of. I think we had some fun there, man. So I'm so excited. I hope Eric goes on to win a mixed game bracelet, and we'll all be a part of his story when he's standing there on the podium in the WSOP in a couple of years. So, Eric, thank you for that. And that was a real gift to see that on Twitter. So I appreciate that. All right. So what else? Let me see. Our schedule is all different now because we're doing these live. But we've got the book study coming up on Wednesday, Rob, and you must be getting pretty close to working on the next installment.
Well, yeah, we have one more session. That'll be this Wednesday. And we should be done with beating small stake strategies for beating small stakes poker tournaments. It'll be a quick one this time. There's not much left in the book to go over. So hopefully we'll just have a nice discussion about what we've learned. Then the Twitter poll has finalized and the book has been chosen. In-Game Strategy by Dara O'Kearney will be our next book study. And we'll be starting that the first Wednesday of May.
Nice.
That is a really worthwhile book to study too. That's gonna be good.
Yeah, and it fits in with what our theme is going to be in May also. So I mean, it's perfect book for that.
Yep.
That's fantastic. He's done so much great stuff, and obviously he's a friend of the show. And Dara is a member of the Wrecking Crew. He even contributes to our learning material here every month. So I can't wait to get elbows deep in that. Thanks, Rob, for all the work. And if folks don't know, Rob prepares like slides for these. He really guides the group through the book, chapter by chapter. He knows what he's talking about in advance, but we all kind of learn it together through these group sessions, and we just go every 2 weeks. It gives you time to read them in between, and this would be a good time to get involved. If we're starting a new book, even if you don't make it to the first session is usually just sort of like let's talk about how we're going to go through the book, and and give yourself an extra 2 weeks to pick it up. And it's the end of April now. If you become a premium member in time to join the new book with Dara in May, you will probably still be a premium member on June 1st. And that will mean that you get to have your name drawn from all the other premium members who are active on June 1st. And we're going to pull one name, and that person is going to have the chance to be my partner as in the tag team event number 55 on June 26th. So you'll have about 3 weeks to figure out how you're going to get yourself down to Vegas and where you're going to sleep. But if you can get to that all taken care of, I'll put up your entry, and you and I will go win a tag team event for Rec Poker. Get a couple of bracelets, and then we can each get one bracelet, or you can have two at Christmas, and I'll get two at New Year's or something like that. We'll have some fun figuring that out. And Chris and Taylor have confirmed that you do not have to take turns sitting in each other's lap. You actually get to walk away from the table when your partner is playing. So I think it'll be a much more comfortable scenario than what I was originally envisioning. But I'm really looking forward to that too.
I think the one you were envisioning would have far fewer entries.
I think that's probably true, Chris.
Probably easier to win a bracelet that way.
I think that one might be that's like bracelet hunting right there. They should do one of those, like an endurance one where there's piranhas biting at your ankles and just things that annoy you while you're playing.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, well now we've got a new asterisk format to introduce in 2023. So Chris, you're changing how we do things at Rec Poker. We've got a monthly theme each month now, and I know folks are going to get a chance to check out some new features on the website over May and June, and over the summer as we get it all perfect. But what are some monthly themes coming up, and how are you looking forward to exploring them?
Yeah, we're kind of dipping our toe in the water here. We're going to really take the big plunge for this, probably starting in June. In May, we're going to kind of work on some of our pre-flop ranges and some of that kind of thing. But then starting into June, we're going to start looking at c-betting in position in single raise pots. That'll be kind of our month of June. And then July, it'll be c-betting out of position in single raised pots. And those months will kind of go together. We'll spend a lot of time as a community talking about them. We'll focus on the kind of the seminar around that. And we're going to change the name of this to be called the Deep Dive. So it'll be called the Rec Poker Deep Dive. Each month, that'll be what you'll look for. You'll see it highlighted on the new website, which we're also working on building, trying to have that kind of launch in June. But so we'll be starting to talk about these. So when you hear the deep dive, that's what we're talking about. It's going to be talking about these monthly themes that we're going to explore as a community.
It's going to be sweet. And if you're not a premium member, like I say, use the code RECPOKER and sign up for $5 and get involved. Or just enjoy all our free stuff. Come hang out on the YouTube channel on Monday nights when we do the podcast. We've got some really exciting guests coming up. You can ask them questions one-to-one right here. Get involved with our Discord channel. There's some great channels there, railing when we do live events. Obviously, a lot of hand history reviews. The forums at Rec Poker are phenomenal. There's a lot of great stuff. Website Mark's always working on ways to make the forums more exciting and easier to share information and that sort of thing. So yeah, give us a try. And is there anything else any of y'all want to bring up before we roll on out of here?
Well, just one thing you mentioned, episodes coming up next week. If you are tuning in live, that is going to be an early episode. It's going to be at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central.
And that's with the one and only David Lappin.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about poker writing, playing, drinking tequila, making fun of Dario Carney. There's going to be a lot of fun happening. That'll be next week at 3:30 Eastern. Come and join us live or listen along when it comes out in audio. All right. Well, I want to thank our sponsors, Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino, and Website Amp. Everyone in the chat, Denise and Jim and Martha, Maud Grinder, and Keith, John, Rob, Chris, and of course, Chad Holloway. And you, the listeners, you're the best.